Welcome to Beyond the Music, the podcast where we dive into the lives and stories of people who shaped the world of music. I am Karina.
And I'm Lena. We're both classically trained singers, and this podcast is our chance to explore the fascinating intersections of music, history, and humanity.
In our previous episode, we explored the harsh world of music competitions, and today we are continuing our Connections Within Music series with a very special guest and a very powerful topic: dramatic voices.
Yes, and we are so excited about this one because today we are not just talking about theory, we are talking lived experience. Joining us today is my dear friend Theresa, who is, like Karina and I, a dramatic voice, a soprano whom I got to know during my time in Frankfurt while doing my master's. And Theresa is currently doing her Konzertexamen, which for those outside of Germany is essentially the highest postgraduate artistic degree at the Hochschule in Frankfurt, University, the Music Conservatory in Frankfurt. And she's studying with none other than Michel Breth, an incredible mezzo-soprano with a huge international career. So Theresa is in very good hands, I'd say.
Theresa, we are so happy to have you here today. Thank you.
Yes, hello.
Thanks for having me.
So, before we dive into the realities, the struggles, the advantages, the stereotypes, let's start at the very beginning. What is a dramatic voice? Because if someone listening has never studied classical singing, they might just think, isn't a soprano just a soprano?
Exactly. In classical singing, voices are not just categorized by range, meaning how high or how low someone sings, but also by weight, color, power, and stamina. A dramatic voice is a voice with significant vocal weight, density, and carrying power. It's built to soar over a large orchestra, sometimes even a very large orchestra, without any amplification.
And when we say weight, we don't mean heaviness in a negative way. On a biological scale, the vocal folds are a little thicker than with a lighter voice type. So the term weight is actually quite literal, the thickness of the vocal folds. A heavier voice has a darker timbre, a richer overtone spectrum, and often a naturally bigger sound. Dramatic voices are designed almost architecturally to fill huge opera houses.
And it's important to say, dramatic does not mean loud all the time. A dramatic voice still needs softness, pianissimo, flexibility, but the core of the sound has a certain density and authority.
In soprano categories, for example, you have lyric sopranos, lighter, brighter voices, often singing Mozart or Verdi. And then you have dramatic sopranos singing Wagner, Strauss, late Verdi, Puccini, roles like Turandot. There are roles that require enormous stamina.
Think of soprano roles like Brünnhilde in Wagner, Elektra in Strauss, beautiful Isolde in Tristan und Isolde, Puccini's Turandot, and Lady Macbeth. These roles are long, they sit high, and they require singing over thick orchestration.
And it's not just sopranos. There are dramatic tenors, dramatic mezzos, dramatic baritones. Basically voices that are built for the big, heavy repertoire.
And one more very important point. Dramatic voices often develop later. You don't usually hear a fully developed dramatic soprano at age 22. These voices need time, maturity, physical and technical growth. And I just want to mention, I've always been told that the bigger the voice, the longer it takes to develop.
Exactly. Which already leads us into one of the major topics of today: patience and pressure.
So now that we've laid the foundation and everyone knows what we're talking about, Theresa, we want to talk about the real experience of being a dramatic voice Fach. The beauty, the struggle, the expectations.
Because from the outside, it sounds glamorous. Big roles, big sound, big drama. But what does it actually mean to be a dramatic voice today? So, let's start at the beginning. When did you first realize that your voice wasn't just lyric, but dramatic? Did teachers immediately recognize it, or was there confusion?
Well, let's see. Of course, I was always want to sing loud from childhood on. Like I was always the kid in the kids' choir. People told to sing more quiet so that they could hear the other kids.
Oh.
Yeah, but when I first started singing lessons at age 14, and pretty soon my teacher told me that my voice is heavier. Like I have a big voice. Like I don't know about you guys, but the picture I get most often is a big truck or something compared to a cabrio or a mini. Like my teachers always tell me I have a big truck of a voice, so it's more difficult to get around the curves, and it's more difficult to maneuver. So yeah, that was pretty clear early on. But I was always trained as a soprano, so a lot of dramatic sopranos start out as mezzos, but I was always a soprano, and so yeah. I always heard that I have a big voice.
Okay.
And that's also not ideal.
To always get told that you have a big voice.
Yeah, because when you're always told you have a big voice, you feel like pressure to sing loud, in my opinion. And then you start to press out the sound.
Yeah.
So that's a danger.
Yeah, and also being told to be quiet, especially as a child, you physically have to restrain your voice almost, because you're not singing with your natural, beautiful, big voice anymore. And I personally found it very hard just to let the voice out after years of being told to be quiet.
Yes. And especially because, there's I think every voice teacher knows that a dramatic or a big voice needs to be slimmed down, or it needs to be let. How do I say this in English?
You have to slim it down a little to not overpower your voice. So it's like, because the tendency is that a bigger voice always wants to go, and it's for younger big voices is often too much to handle. So first they have to learn how to a little bit slim down to go over the passaggio, especially as a soprano. That's a big problem up there.
Yeah.
For bigger voices. That's why I was a mezzo at the beginning.
Yeah. But also, I did a lot of Zwischenfach, I think. But what I wanted to say is my first teacher, she knew that she had to slim it down, but she didn't realize what it means, I think. Like she tried to make me sing too small repertoire, and with only like the top part, like only a small part of my voice, not with the whole voice. And that worked reasonably well until I was around 25. Then my whole voice basically broke down, like it got really wobbly and stuff like that. And I was really lucky that I met Frau Breth, my professor, and she took care of it.
Oh, and that's the other thing. It's very hard to train our voices because, while we grow, our bodies change, hormones, the voice changes. And if we aren't taught that proper technique early on, we do have these problems. And even if we are taught the proper technique, we are still going to have these issues when our bodies decide to change. Bigger the voice, it's more noticeable.
Also, what I heard in I don't know who said it anymore, because it's like a few weeks ago I saw a video of someone who is also a singer and a teacher telling that, interestingly, on a like biological level, the muscles you need to support your voice fully aren't fully functional like aren't fully grown until the age of 25. So that's normally the age where everything breaks down if you haven't learned before to use your muscles to their best support or to their best how do you say, like, use your muscles to what they can do at the moment. And a lot of, especially sopranos, have get along without using their support system.
Yes.
Like the lighter voices, but when you have a heavier voice, you really need those muscles and to learn to control them. And that's why a lot of bigger voices have the problem starting at 25 because they haven't learned it before.
Yeah.
So, and then they cannot support anymore when the full mass wants to go into the voice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing is for our non-singing friends listening in is that when we talk about muscles, we're not talking about muscles just in the throat. We're talking about the rib cage. We're talking about abdominal muscles. We're talking even the pelvic muscles to really support the entire voice. It is a full body instrument. It's not just the two vocal cords.
Yeah. Though the vocal cords, that's also something that my teacher tells me that until the age of around 29, 30, the vocal cords are not ready for heavy repertoire. Like they need to get a certain firmness in order to support that kind of singing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm so glad you brought that up, Theresa, because it goes into our next question about the late bloomer struggle. That dramatic voices, they develop later. So how does that affect career opportunities, pressures to fit into young artist programs? And how do we stay patient when the big roles that our voices are literally built for are still years away?
I think it's very difficult. You will agree to start a career because ideally there are not a lot of small roles for big voices. There's like a few with Wagner, like for example Freya in Rheingold or Rittenhorn in Götterdämmerung. But there's very few and far in between. So ideally you win a competition and then people can give you the bigger roles immediately. But you can't really sing your first role at a theater and be, I don't know, Contessa or something. Well, not Contessa, it's not really dramatic, but like a big main role.
I mean, you can maybe start with a Agathe, which is a little bit lower and a little bit less challenging.
Yeah, Agathe or Elettra, Contessa,
Vitalia.
like the heavier Wagner roles, like maybe also, I mean, depending on what type of dramatic soprano you are, you can also start Donna Anna or Donna Elvira. I think Donna Elvira is the better choice.
You call it kind of the Zwischenfach, which means you are in between the mezzo-soprano and the soprano because you cannot sing yet the repertoire in the soprano dramatic Fach because it's too challenging yet. So you go for a role which is kind of in between from the range.
Yeah.
So in my early stage of career, I did sing Donna Elvira when I did develop the bigger voice and the more technically sounding voice. But even in my earlier stages in university, when I was a soprano, I sang Susanna from Le Nozze di Figaro. So you definitely have to be smart as a bigger voice. And also, I think when it comes to casting as well, you need to have voices that match. And that's another struggle with having a bigger voice.
Yeah, that's a problem, especially when it comes to concerts, I think, for bigger voices, because there's not a lot of, like I can sing Bach, but no one wants to hear me as a Bach soprano. Because I'm going to sound exactly like the alto. So like for concerts, the balance is difficult. Kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And here in Germany, for example, we have a quite big concert possibilities for the young singers. We have a lot of church concerts from Eastern times. You have all the passions from Bach going up and down in every church. We have a lot of opportunities there, and especially the tenors are getting rich in Christmas and Eastern times because they get so many concerts. So, but as a heavier voice, yeah, exactly. You can sing Bach. I can sing also Bach, and I would love to sing a Matthäus Passion, but I think no one would like to hear that because the alto has to be then a little bit heavier too, and that's normally also expensive.
I think especially with the Baroque repertoire, it's also more difficult to take the vibrato out.
Oh no, that's okay for me.
Voices. At least for me, it's very difficult. Like I had one new music project, and I told them I can't do it because I can't do those straight tones they wanted. I also don't like them because I think it doesn't sound nice.
Yeah, I have to say, teaching a lot of pop music and meanwhile also singing then a lot of pop music really helped with that.
Maybe I should try that.
Yeah.
So what about the pressure of fitting into young artist programs, especially now that they have age limits?
I gave up after 2 years.
I mean, there's always a few places that are looking for bigger voices for their young artist programs, especially now that in Germany there's a lot at our opera houses. They're trying to save some money, so young people from the young artist programs get bigger roles. For example, it's pretty common that someone from a young artist program sings Queen of the Night in a Zauberflöte production or something like that. But it's not very common. And also you would need someone who recognizes what kind of voice it is, because sometimes they think they don't realize what roles you might be able to sing. They just assume, and then you're stuck with weird roles that don't really fit your voice.
Or no roles at all. I mean, there are young artist programs who have people in there who are not singing anything. They're just covering, but the people they are covering for are never sick.
Yeah, I mean, at least you're getting paid then. Not enough. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's difficult. That's why I think that in quotes, easiest way for a big voice to get a career is through competitions. I don't like it. I hate competitions, but it's how most of the big dramatic sopranos today got their career.
It's just too bad that they don't have a young artist program specifically for the bigger voices.
Yeah, but that's the hard part, because it's always on a opera house, and opera houses are not only having like production with bigger voices. I mean, they have in Bayreuth, they have covers of singers who are not yet like really well known, who are never put on stage. I mean, I was in the choir there 2 years ago or something, and there was like 1 or 2 cases where there was an accident on stage. Or shortly before the opera started, once there was an accident on stage, and I think it was the Holländer who after the first act then was like, well, I cannot go on. Oh no, he did the whole production. The next time there was another one. But they didn't take the cover for the Holländer. Then they
flew someone in.
Took someone known for the next production. And then we had like the Parsifal production, where I think shortly before the Parsifal got sick, and it was really short notice. And instead, and they did put the cover on stage for the first act, where he does not have to sing anything. Like like really not much. And then in the second act, he was sitting in his changing room and waiting for information if he has to go up again or not. So they flew in. Klaus Florian Vogt from, I don't know, it was Madeira or something. He was on holidays for a week or so. They flew him in, and there were problems with the flight and delay with the flight and whatever, and he still had to go from Munich to Bayreuth and everything. So it was not sure if he could go on stage the second act. And he made it just in time and sang his voice really fits the Parzival, I have to say. And did it wonderfully. But also it's like you already, like the cover was already being there. You do pay a short notice flight for like someone else to get them out of their holidays instead of using the cover.
Yeah, but because they're afraid of losing face or something as the big Bayreuther Festspiel.
Well, but they could also be surprised by some really, really good cover. I mean, they are probably casting the covers. Why are they casting them then? I mean, why have a cover when you don't use them?
Well, I think what they're trying to do is they are trying to give us young people the opportunity in a safe environment. However, I would really like to point out that trusting us new people with these big roles, it's a huge trust to be put into by the opera companies.
Yeah, but on the other hand, like in that case, they don't take young singers for the covers. They are already like singers who have a lot of experience, but are not yet there like the Klaus Florian Vogts of the world, you know? So that's why I'm wondering why I even get them. Then get young singers and make it an opera program, like a young singers program for dramatic voice, and do it like that. But don't take covers and then don't use them. I mean, that's also a money spent on nothing.
Well, I think it's a very difficult position just to be in for everyone because our voices are a big gamble. And I think it's a great intro into how do we stay patient when these big roles for us are still years away.
I don't have patience.
Lots of yoga, lots of meditation. And like moving into that, we do talk to each other to support each other. So I think we've also created a very safe environment for us to be frustrated together and also support each other through this process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's hard, especially when you get so many rebuff when you apply
rejections. Yes. Yes. You start to question things, but I've been told that actually by my teacher to just hold on to the love of music. So what is everyone's dream role? And it can be a role that you're not ready for just yet. It could be future, the most precious role that you want to do.
I'd say something like Turandot because I love Puccini.
Oh, Puccini.
And of course, Brünnhilde.
Oh.
At some point.
Well, for me, I'm not a Puccini girl. I'm a Verdi's girl, so it would be Leonora.
Which one?
She is like the one with the 3 arias, you know.
The Trovatore.
Exactly. She has 3 really hard arias, and I cannot think about yet to be able to sing all 3 plus everything else in one evening.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely 50-50, Wagner and Verdi. For Verdi, I would love to do Azucena, one of the really scary ladies. I just love them. And for Wagner, I would love to do Erda, her full role from Das Rheingold and also in Siegfried, just to feel that character arc.
Yeah. Erda is nice.
I like her. But also Fricka. I do Fricka. She's fun. Just give me all the Wagner roles.
All of them. All of them.
Give them!
One for Wagner, it's for those roles you can start out with a Valkyrie,
I
and
know.
then because they're in every type of voice. For every type of voice, there's a Valkyrie.
Ja, or a solo Blumenmädchen.
Yeah.
Yeah, or a Rheintochter.
Exactly. So there are some small roles like Blumenmädchen, Rheintöchter, Valkyries, where you can start with. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some pros and cons of being a dramatic voice?
Being always the loudest in the room.
Yay!
Yes.
And being always the loudest in the room.
Also, I mean, there's theoretically there's not a lot of us, so in theory, it's easier to get a job.
Yeah.
Once you manage to get into the job, you have jobs.
And there you go. But also, our repertoire has longevity to it. Dramatic voices often sing much later into life.
Yes.
But have to also see how to earn their money until they start to sing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, vocal health and stamina, that's something we need to focus on.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think I've been looking forward to this all throughout this episode. Stereotypes.
Yes.
So
Stereotypes.
I think our listeners, when we say Wagner or dramatic voice, you right away think of the horns on the head and the chest plate and the lady singing loudly.
Yeah. It's not like that.
Brünnhilde.
Also, they're always thinking, like, in general, like, dramatic voices are normally a little bit taller persons and also then a little bit, like, bigger persons, yes. But there are all kind of sizes with dramatic voices.
That's true.
Yeah.
So it's more often big and a little bit heavier.
Yeah. But, like, because you
because
just need a little
support.
bit to feed on while singing 5 hours of Wagner, you know?
Yeah.
If you are underweight, you will fall after the first act. That's a fact. You need calories to burn.
And I mean, if you look at Wagnerian singers, they usually have a very broad throat.
Yeah.
Like there's not the small swan throat. People like for Baroque operas, it's always very heavy set.
In German, you say Stirnacken. It's like
Yes.
the neck of an ox, like of a bull,
Yeah.
bull neck.
The muscles get really pronounced at some point.
They do. And our rib cage is very big just to support all that
Yes.
breath.
Yeah, it's kind of like the flute players. They also have like really huge rib cage because of their continuous breathing training and
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to also point out that singers are very fit. We're fit.
Yes.
We're agile. We are in shape. We really are.
Most of us. I don't want to generalize because I met some singers.
yeah.
Why not? But usually later in life, people get
A little bit more lazy.
complacent, let's say,
Yeah.
or less fit. But that's normal.
Yeah, but there are also some before. It's like, because that's a fun fact, because people always think like, oh, well, I don't know, this really overweight singer, he's like lazy and cannot move on stage. No, I already saw like really, you would say, overweight persons on stage, and they were playing way better than the thinner counterparts and having way better feeling for their body and were not exhausted after the production.
Definitely.
So it's like you have it on both ends. I think you have everything. There are people like that, there are people like that, and you cannot generalize.
Well, as long as you're singing healthy, your body is healthy. I think that's the main thing, because our bodies are our instruments.
Yes.
And what works for you may not work for another dramatic voice, because we're all different.
Also, you think about, I'm still thinking about stereotypes. Because, I teach a lot, right? And if people are trying to imitate opera singers, they don't think of the Baroque opera singer. They always think of a Wagnerian opera singer. And they are doing like, like really dark sound and stuff. And like, no, you should not sing like that. That's unhealthy and that does not sound at all like an opera singer. That's tongue tension program there. But like, that's like also a stereotype. Like, especially everyone who sings something heavier than a Mozart, the people think that they have to sound really dark, and dark is not always something which is carrying you over an orchestra.
Yeah.
I mean, the best example for a dramatic soprano that does not sound really dark is Birgit Nilsson, I think, because she has a very light and very cutting sound. Mm-hmm. Kind of like we mentioned him earlier, Klaus Florian Vogt, because a lot of people are really angry about him being a Wagnerian tenor because he has not the color.
Yeah, of course.
He doesn't have the color, but he has the cutting, the carrying, the carrying tone.
The fun thing with him is, I heard him, especially as a Tannhäuser, like really close up, and I do not like his voice for a Tannhäuser. I'm sorry, Klaus Florian Vogt, I'm sorry, but I don't like your voice as a Tannhäuser, even if you sing it beautifully. But I loved him when I heard him jump in as a Parsifal. That fits like 100%. And I don't like Parsifal as an opera, by the way, so that's a big compliment. I don't like that. It's such he's old man dream, Parsifal.
He's the right type for Parsifal, for sure. But also, like really I said, fits. His voice carries. Like my teacher said, he doesn't have a beautiful voice. Maybe cut that out in case he hears that. Yeah, he doesn't have a beautiful voice, but he cuts through anything. He cuts through stone, basically.
Yeah, but it's true. He does not have a beautiful voice like the people say a Wagnerian tenor should sound, which is a little bit darker.
Yeah,
you know, he has a nice voice, but it sounds a little bit more like a Tamino if you just go by the sound of it.
But he always sounds like he has a mic. He is the only person in the room with a mic on when he sings in Bayreuth.
Yeah. And I think that's a very good way to end this episode, is that dramatic voices, this is what we have tried to standardize, but at the end of the day, we're all individual, we all are unique, and we all have unique sounds.
Exactly. Well, so I hope you enjoyed exploring dramatic voices as much as we did. And Theresa, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your honesty, and your insights with us today.
Yes, thank you so much, Theresa.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you so much, Theresa. It's important to talk about the realities behind different voice types, the beauty, the pressure, the patience, and the power that comes with them.
If you liked this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It really helped us grow and continue these conversations.
Next time, we'll delve into another fascinating chapter of music history.
Until then, keep listening and discovering the stories beyond the music. See you next time.